All right, we can still see the outline. It's not the full screen yet. There we go. All right, thank you, Kaushik. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. Welcome to the 6th PDW Creating a Responsive Proposal. My name is Megan Blees, and I am the project manager for College of Health Solutions Research Success Hub.
Balakrishnan, and I am the Director for Research Development and Advancement at the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you join us. Here we're going to go over the agenda real quick so you are aware of what we're going to talk about. So first thing we're going to talk about is what does the sponsor want? And then making sure that you focus your project, align your project with what the sponsor wants. And thinking and rethinking what you are proposing. All those will go together to make sure that it is specifically responding to the proposal in front of you. We're going to teach you outlining, shell, and storyboarding. Excellent. And then as a reminder, if you have not watched these yet, these are fantastic PDWs that we've done so far this year. You should definitely go back and watch them. If you have, this is just a refresher. First one was research landscape and strategy. And that's going to be understanding the sponsor, your research strategy. Number 2 is finding funding opportunities, identifying that funder type and how to identify funding opportunities that fit your research. And then the 4th is effective messaging, ability to concisely pitch an idea that grabs listeners' attention in a short amount of time.
So if you have learned the critical message from each of the PDW, then you would have identified potentially a sponsor. I'm going to pick on NSF because that's my favorite to pick on. So I will go with that. And so within NSF, I found a directorate and I have found a program within that directorate that I'm excited about. I think my research fits well in that space. And I have pitched an idea to the program manager and they think that there's a fair chance this may get funded. So and then the solicitation drops. Oopsie, what do we do now? Well, this is a normal reaction. As a former researcher, this is something I'm used to doing, where I see a solicitation and I'm just starting to type up. But what the tools of the trade we are trying to share with you all today is to slow down. And we'll explain the rationale for slowing down a little bit. And it's to first focus on creating a responsive proposal. This actually means not writing anything right now, just taking the opportunity, taking the solicitation, shredding it completely, creating an outline part, and then Megan will walk us through the storyboarding aspects of it. So, like I said, this is motivated heavily by the Nobel Prize winner in economics. It's Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where it's talking about 2 levels of system that we have for thinking, which helps us, but sometimes it doesn't. When there's a threat in front of us, we know how to get away from it. But when we are working on a proposal, we have plenty of time to think about the ideas we have. And so this is asking you to think slowly, think deeper and longer about things. So here are the 3 key things, we will do. We will first do an activity on shredding the proposal. The second thing would be outlining. And then finally, we will do, sorry, that's wrong. We'll do a storyboarding over there at the end. All right. So I'm going to walk with you all on first, when you see the solicitation, you want to read all parts of the proposal, all parts of the solicitation. What do I mean by that? It's typically a lengthy document. If it's NSF, for example, again, typically they will have a funding number and a whole series of information on what has changed from the past. And we'll go through some of these examples and we'll pick up again on NSF. But beyond that, there is also sponsor guidelines. Like NSF has the proposal preparation guide, and NIH also has an application guide. You want to read and understand what are the pagination limits, what are all the sections that one needs to cover when you're working on a proposal. So you're reading and rereading the solicitation to understand the program better. You're not really writing at this point. You want to take this time to fully comprehend. Also understand what are the look and the feel of what is the sponsor really asking of us. So let's stop the presentation for a second, and I will share a solicitation that we will walk through. So I'm picking on, are you able to see my screen? Perfect.
Yes,
All
I
right.
can.
So this is the Civic Innovation Challenge that NSF has. And this is the solicitation. It's in a PDF format, but I prefer working in PDF so I can annotate, highlight, etc. So here, this competition is all about community-driven priority. And when you look at this, you see these directorates are funding it. So your your research should fit within one of these, the work of one of these directorates. And then when you scroll down, you see, oh, Department of Energy is involved and the Homeland Security is also involved. Then you see 2 stages. So you see the deadline for each stage. However, when there are multiple stages, it also typically means that there is a filter. You will get an award for stage 1, and only those successful proposals may submit a proposal. You will again see this is a typical NSF solicitation, and this is not atypical for other sponsors. So other sponsor may not tell you what was the revision and notes or the changes between the previous cycles. For example, Department of Defense will just have a list of information, topics, how to guide, how to write the proposal, what are the things that go in the narrative section. NSF is slightly better, especially if you're familiar with the program at the first run, you would have a better idea of what NSF is asking or what changes they are looking for. Again, here they're talking about the synopsis of the program. That this particular program wants to fund a pilot over 12 months following a 6 months of planning phase. So stage 1 is your planning proposal, and stage 2 is your implementation proposal in the community. And there are 2 tracks. I don't want to read through this entire proposal, but I want to give you a sense of things that you should look for when you're going into the solicitation. You're going in, looking at, what are the restrictions? Is it limited in terms of organization? If it is, if it is limited by the sponsor that ASU can submit only 1 proposal, you will hear from Haley in the newsletter where it will be clearly highlighted when the proposals are due for shortlisting within ASU. And then if you get the ticket, you then have time to prepare your full proposal. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit more and, look at what are the things NSF is trying to tell us, what they want within this program. Now, this is really good. Talking about track A, they're saying very clearly that your proposal should focus on, if you're picking up track A, for instance, your proposal should focus on actions around disaster, before even the disaster. So it's a lot of planning and a lot of resilience within the community or the system that you're trying to put in place. NSF has also given you a series of questions, which means you should be answering these questions in the proposal directly. It's explicit here that you answer it. And track B is talking about how you can, where are the gaps right now and what is needed to fill that. So it seems slightly more long-term. However, you still need to figure out how you will achieve this in a 12-month time frame. So that's all that. All right. So, and then if you scroll down, it also says so civic awardees must participate in activities with Metro Lab. So NSF has already funded somebody, or there is a network that is already in existence, and they are asking you to leverage what is available. So you may have to do some conversations with partners around that. All right. Now, this is the important part. What are the things you need to write? And this is what we're going to focus on. You understood at the high level from the previous PDWs, like, have I found a sponsor? Have I found a program that I can apply to? Now, it's all about what is it that you're going to do within this particular project. within this proposal. So it's here, it's talk. So it's all about the project description today. It's talking and the whole checklist broadly too. But project description is what is driving majority of the work here. All proposals must include all sections required by PAPPG. And this is why I mentioned earlier on that you need to familiarize yourself with most of the proposal preparation guides. And almost all sponsors have this in one form or the other. It will give you guidelines on how budgeting may be done, etc. All right. Here, they're giving you sections that they want to see in the planning grant proposal. They're saying we want to see a vision, we want to see the research questions, obviously. They want to see who are the civic partners and how the engagement would look, what is the broader impact, and the results from prior support. And then for the full stage, they want you to detail far more. They have explicitly asked questions. So again, NSF has actually done you a favor, to be honest, in terms of it has given you questions and laid it down and said, well, if you answer these questions, it will make it easy for the reviewer to know whether you're meeting all of these requirements that need to be met or not. All right, that's the first phase of just reading the solicitation. Now let's shred it a little bit, shall we? So let's see. I'm just going to run some search strings here. All right, the first thing I'm going to search is must do. Let's see. Oops, what did it do? Should. Okay. There are 52 shoulds. All right. So let's take a look at where these things are appearing. All right. A civic project should address technical and social science research questions. All right. That's important from the solicitation. Activity should be scalable and sustainable. Teams should consider, who are the stakeholders. So this is giving you a sense of all the things you want to write down. I'm going to just scroll down and just pick on something. So you can see there's a lot of teams should consider within the sustainability plan. And these are all the questions that you need to answer. All right, should. Just 1 second. I'll just go back to the presentation. And all right.
And Kaushik, when we're looking at this, it's important to also notice what we should not or must not do, right?
That is correct. So let's go back to the solicitation. Thank you so much, Megan. So we looked at what we should do. Let's see what we must not do. There is only one must not. Yay. So we got lucky. So it says, this is not the most critical must not. It says, your project description must not exceed 7 pages for planning grant proposal. So you have a page limit that has been set up. Let's also look at what we must do, because that also drives a lot of scope and budget. So here we go. Must. Civic awardees must participate in cohort activities led by Metro Lab with a combination of in-person or virtual events, which it explicitly tells you need to send a minimum of 2 team members, including the PI and preferably member of project representing a different sector from the PI. So, that means this is a direct budget impact. This is also a milestone impact. So you need to know what are the things you are required to do. So simple searches like that will help you. It also lays down that sub-awardee, the awardee in stage 2 will be required to participate in bi-monthly discussion with the sponsor, NSF, and other agencies to share updates. So again, NSF is going to hold you accountable with all the things you said that you will do. So this is one way to shred the solicitation, is to go through some of these phrases and then see where are they appearing? Is it part of the budgeting? Is it part of a schedule? Is it part of engagement? And how is it weighed into the review criteria? You will also see at the end of almost all NSF solicitation how these proposals will be reviewed. For most NSF, it's very straightforward. Broader impact is critical. The societal impact is obviously part of the broader impact, but the intellectual merit that is driving it is equally important. So here are some of the key phrases that I have listed. I've looked at within the solution, what solicitation, what you must do, what you will do, what you should do, strongly encouraged. Well, if budget, everything permits, we'll squeeze these things in. Must not do. Sometimes they will explicitly tell you, you cannot budget for these activities. You cannot use cost share, for example, and all of those nitty-gritty details. It will be all spelled out. And then you are required to. So again, you need to know what are things you must be doing. All right. Now, once you go through reading all of the solicitation and shredding it, you want to create like a comprehensive checklist for your own benefit. Like, what are all the documents that's going to take an enormous amount of time to prepare? And obviously, the project narrative is the bulk of the work. You're going to have to spend an enormous amount of time writing, revising, rewriting the project's narrative. You also have the project summary, which needs to be succinct and within the pagination and the limits set by the sponsor. Sometimes they will give you 250 words to write something. Sometimes they will be clear that all these 3 sections should show up within that 1 page. So you'll have to work through the system that you're submitting things from. You will also have a plethora of supplementary documents and other documents. And within this particular thing, they're asking for who are the personnel and which institution do they belong to, so that they have a comprehensive list of everybody involved. And then NSF has its own set of biographical sketches that needs to be provided. You need to provide current and pending. You need to also have letters of collaboration, etc. So this way, you know all the activities you need to now tackle after reading the solicitation. Once you're done with these 2 activities, you now have a rough plan to meet the deadline. After you have this, you then move on to the next part, for which Megan will take over.
Yes, thank you so much, Kaushik, for sharing all of that with us. And now we're going to be discussing storyboarding, content planning, which is essentially, it's a conceptual planning tool that takes you from the abstract, really wide, high-level ideas and helps you narrow it down to specifically what you want to write your proposal about, making sure that it's still compliant. And, if you have everything kind of laid out and you can narrow it down to the more specific things, you're going to make sure that what you're providing to the sponsor shines. And this is a whole process. We're going to move on to the next one so that you can see the steps. I won't make you do everything right now, but this step 1 is basically when you have a larger group or it's a new project, it's a great tool to pull out a blank piece of paper, or you can work on PowerPoint. You can use the app, Microsoft Whiteboard, all sorts of things just to write down any ideas that you can think of. You can have specific phrases or one-liners to make sure that it's, easy to remember, but you want to write down as many ideas that you have as possible. I was at a conference recently where they said it's a lot easier to come up with ideas once you hit 3, like coming up with 7 is easier than coming up with 2. So write everything down. Don't, criticize your thoughts before you write it down. Allow everyone in the team to share them, because you will come back and you will narrow it down to 3 or 5 plans or fewer. And then you'll want to make sure that you have a clock in mind. You want to take 15 minutes to do it. If you need a little more time, that's fine. But if it needs to keep going, I would recommend stepping away and come back. And you'll want to use a facilitator while you're doing this to help move everything along, keep track of the time, so you're not stuck in that for the whole indefinitely, basically. And then once you finish that, you'll want to set specific goals and objectives based on your ideas. Like we mentioned, there's 3 to 5 plans. So you'll want to write those out. And it's beneficial to have a figure for each plan so that you're able to articulate the ideas clearly, make it easier for the reviewers. And you'll want to make sure that it is clear and concise, but there are additional steps that we have to help you make sure that you are achieving all of that and remaining compliant. We'll move on to the next slide. So what do you plan to do? Are they all lining up with that? You'll want to make sure that you're writing down each of the tasks that you have. Sorry. Sorry, I'm probably jumping around a little bit. So you'll want to write down every task so that you can make sure that you're keeping track of all of your research goals. So you can see this, you'll want to charge conduction in protein nanowire. There are specific tasks, both of these are included. So the protein wire synthesis that a graduate student can do in 2 weeks. But then there's also the protein wire device that Kaushik, who's the expert, is going to do it in 3 months, and it's going to cost $6,000. Make sure you write down all the tasks, who's going to perform it, like the time and the resources that it takes, so you can plan ahead and spend more time actually in the research than having to go back and fix things. And then step 4, I find really important, what's new in your approach, because obviously you're submitting for a proposal for a reason. There's something that's innovative about it, but you do need to make sure that it's clear that it's innovative and that it will matter to reviewers and whoever is involved in this. So as you can see at the bottom, there's a question, are there enough unique deliverables that will create an impact or be transformative? So once you write down your approach, you'll write down why it will succeed. And then I often suggest having someone who is either familiar or even not familiar with the subject matter coming and looking at it and making sure that it's not just run-of-the-mill generic, but there's something about it that excites them and that will matter, which actually ties into our next slide. And that's who cares? Because someone cares, obviously you care, but there are stakeholders that also matter. Maybe it's the community, maybe it's someone in the research community around you, maybe there's someone that you want to partner with that's really excited about it, or even just the reviewers, and it perfectly lines up with their solicitation. You need to write down why it matters, how it impacts them. Again, tying into what's innovative about it, but writing it in a way that is exciting and makes them want to jump on your proposal. And then the next one, we want to make sure that we're keeping track of major milestones. And granted, maybe there's, we have it 2 in year 1, 1 in year 2, 2 in year 3. Maybe you only have a couple of milestones and maybe they all happen in the last year. That's totally fine, but you do want to make sure you're keeping track of them so that you're making progress and you can, it's easier to keep track of it rather than, a few weeks before the end, all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, did I get anything done? So make sure you're keeping track of it in the beginning. And then the next one you want to do is keeping track of potential risks. So if you want to look or remember back to the one that we had before, the tasks we have to do, maybe we don't receive all the materials on time and it delays the process, or it costs more money to get it from somewhere else. Maybe for yours, you have a specific community partner in mind that you want to work with and they have to back out, and then you have to find someone else to work with, and maybe that makes it take longer, or it impacts a certain area of your research that you wanted to engage in. It's a good idea to have backup plans, or at least write down what you think you can do to prepare for that, so it's not an emergency situation when something pops up. All right, then once you've done all of those steps, we recommend coming to this step after it's been a little while. Maybe you did those all and you come back fresh in the morning or after lunch, and you want to get ready to prepare all of the items that you have. These are the shell documents that we saw before, and you want to make sure that the ideas you have from your storyboarding line up with it. You'll assign who will write what area, who's going to be in charge of the project narrative. You can use the proposal manager to help you assign it to everybody. And again, the same type of thing, maybe having the specific people say how long it's going to take for them to write, create the specific deadlines, and make sure everything remains compliant. You can use your ideas to answer the specific questions that are in those shells to make sure that it's all clear. And then again, have people come back and review it to make sure that it is responsive. All right. And then we like to share this Myers Catechism because it's basically all the ingredients in the recipe that is a successful grant proposal. So if you have not read this before, take some time to read this. And then if you do know it, it's just a refresher for your memory. It's important to keep this in mind when you're working on them. And these strategies all tie into it as well. And then why are we talking about all of this? So these things all go together. What we talked about includes the scope, the schedule, the budget, and they all work together to make a quality proposal. So if anything is off, it does need to be compensated in the other areas to ensure that it is, again, a quality proposal. And hopefully these tools will help you make adjustments when necessary when something pops up to make sure that it remains quality. And then as a reminder, these are the proposals that PDWs that we've done so far, understanding the sponsor and your research strategy, identifying the funder type and how to identify funding opportunities, ability to concisely pitch an idea that grabs listeners' attention in a short amount of time, and today, the importance of tailoring your proposal to the opportunity announcement.
Thank you, Megan. And so, but wait, there's still a lot more to come. You have 4 more PDUs that will talk about the what process and the how. You will learn more about persuasive writing in the next PDW. And following that, we'll be editing your proposal. We have some amazing resources available. Some of them are online here. I want to go back and share one more thing before we open it up broadly. Is what does a shell documentation look like? We talked about the outline broadly when we were looking at the solicitation. So this is the NSF. I picked up stage 2, track A, and so I have a successful stage 1 that I submitted. So I have a lot of information from that I'm going to take and then say all the things we did and how we adapted it. These are all the questions. Anything in the color here is something you can delete after the fact, but these are the instructions that you need to answer these questions. Anything in the black is a section that is required by NSF. So, these are the questions. Once you're done answering all these questions and you're happy with the text that you type up, you can delete all these instructions. So here you go. Sometimes NSF instructions itself can run 3 pages long. Here you go. So it's also talking about management plan here and in the bottom part, like who will be the how will the project be managed? Who are the key people around it? How will you execute the planning grant? What all things work during the planning grant and what will work during the implementation, who will be carrying out. So this is, again, when Megan was walking you all through the storyboarding exercise, you have the what, when, you have the task, how long it will take, who will carry out, what it's roughly it's going to cost, will all shape the big quality triangle that Megan shared again, in terms of that will define what is the scope of work you can carry out in a meaningful time frame with a meaningful budget. So this is a generic shell documentation. With that, we'll open the floor up for questions. Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to simply unmute yourself and ask a question of Megan or Kaushik, or you can chat it in the chat box.
Are you generally required to review earlier successful proposals for their novel contributions?
It depends. Sometimes looking at previous proposals can help you in terms of understanding how a sponsor funded something, but it's not a must. This is sometimes what happens is people get anchored by reading previous proposals and really don't innovate, which is why the shell documentation comes in very handy. When you do that process, you are thinking and you're slowing down and thinking about your project, about your deliverable, about your innovation, about your newness and how it fits the sponsor. So you're not getting stuck in the frame like somebody else did this. Oh, maybe and you actually get stuck in that frame a lot. So there's a lot of psychological evidence on that front. And so you get stuck in that frame. When you're trying to do something innovative and you want to move away from that frame, you really should think about your project, your proposal. The other element, and Megan alluded to this, is once you have a draft version of your proposal ready, you should have a peer evaluate it and review it and give you feedback. We actually have Daniel Freud is here. He does it for engineering, but there are editing services available through KE that will look for clarity and how easy is it for a reviewer to understand. Sometimes you will not get a reviewer that is very coherent in your specific research topic. So they may not, understand all of the terminologies or methodologies that you're proposing. You need to have it written in such a way that that's tailored rather to both a general audience as well as a very somebody in your field. Think about your peer. So you need to write from that. And so this is where you need to have somebody who reviews it. Ideally, a peer. Ideally, you will have 2 or more people reviewing it. So you get a really good feedback, especially on complex projects, right? When you have, let's say you're going after a big center level grant, that's where you want to have somebody else read it and comment on, readability, applicability, and basically drill big holes in your ideas, because that's how you get better and better proposal. Hope that answers your question, Kevin.
Well, how often or is it permissible or advisable to ask the program, I don't know if they're called managers or officers that are responsible for this particular proposal, ask them specifically before you submit your response whether they think your response is novel?
100% you should be doing that. In fact, that is the step that one of the PDW covers in terms of understanding and pitching to the program officer, manager, whatever. Different agencies have different things. Actually, if you are applying to National Endowment of Humanities, NEH will actually review your proposal ahead of time and tell you how to make it stronger. But you have to be ready with your proposal on the dates that they are available to get it done. So it can't be done at the last minute. However, there are some others. You can't expect a program officer to read a 15-page narrative and give you feedback. Unfortunately, that's not happening. So for when you listen to the PDW, the prior PDWs, there's actually a method for creating like a 1-page succinct summary, which is detailing your innovation, your fit to the program. In fact, I have written to NSF a lot in my past life when I was not on this side of the house in administration. When I was a researcher, I would talk to the program officers all the time. And it's unbelievable the amount of advice I would have gotten from them. For example, once I had a program officer say, skip this task 3 because there is so much overlap with what the other teams are doing that we will never be able. This whole proposal will look bad when you add that scope of work. And that really made me rethink, okay, this is the crux of what I'm proposing, and this is what I need to cut. And they will also advise you on budgets. But you have to have, it's getting harder and harder to get engagement sometimes with the program officers. I mean, they're also human beings and they are inundated with hundreds of such requests. So with that notion, you need to have a very clear pitch for what you're trying to do with that particular. So you have to do your homework too. There is a way to know whether your idea or similar work is already funded through looking at what the sponsor awards. For example, in NSF, NIH, and DOE, all of them, all the federal agencies typically will have a list of funded projects. And so you can go through some of them that are aligned with what you're trying to do. It's a little bit of homework to do, but that really pays off in the long run.
What other questions are there?
So this may be covered in later training sessions, but how often, in your experience, do people drop out of the proposal if it's granted? Or is it usually the case that the PI and everybody else sticks around to the end?
Tough question. So,
well, what I'm really worried about is I am concerned about if I do submit this, that one or more of the people that have agreed to participate may drop out. So I'm concerned about that. And if you have any suggestions how to at least lessen the possibility that that's going to happen.
you mean your collaborators dropping out?
Yes, or yeah, I mean, I was also wondering if you could list, well, anyway, go ahead and respond to that question if you could.
So collaborator dropping out does happen, but that might mean that they are not well aligned with the project that is being proposed as a group, or that they have competing proposals where they feel they have higher chance to participate in. This does happen from time to time.
Well, I'm talking about after you win the proposal, how often do people drop out?
It does happen. People do leave institutions, people do leave organizations, and things do happen. Things does happen. But typically, you will always have a replacement plan. And this is where contingency planning, the risk planning is not just what are all the risk of materials buying or something like that. It's also really having the right personnel to do the work. So when you get the award is coming to the institution. So institution is on the hook to deliver on the projects. So if you find that person X who promised to do deliverable Y is no longer available, then you need to find a person Z who can now deliver that deliverable Y. And so you are on the hook as a PI. And this is where having a backup plan for so typically when the management plan is asked for by the sponsor, they are looking at what happens if the PI is not able to perform the duty or is leaving an institution or something else unforeseen happens. Is there somebody else, a deputy director, for example, a deputy PI, or somebody else who can step in and help deliver the project? So when a sponsor is making that kind of an award, especially at center level, high dollar amounts, they are looking at all of that, whether the team has the capability, the capacity, and the ability to deliver on the deliverables that you promised.
Kaushik, can I add something
sure.
to Kevin's question there? One thing you'll find too is that the program managers and these agencies, they understand these are research projects and things change. Sometimes you can't quite get the results you're looking for. Sometimes the teams change, things like that. They are very eager to work with you to make it happen. So if there's any change in, the scope of work or anything like that, you just talk to the program manager, and they'll often kind of work out how can we sort of readjust the research to fit, what the issue is. So I wouldn't, if you get the award, I mean, go for the award. Then don't worry so much about if something changes, because like I said, I've rarely ever seen money pulled back. It's almost always that they'll work with you in some way to kind of make it happen, to work it out.
Well, that's what I was really wondering, if there was a more of a punitive attitude, if the sponsor would really try to crack down on the PI if there was some issue about completing it.
No, like I said, that it's research. sometimes things just don't pan out. And
Okay.
so,
And
yeah,
yeah,
good. They're good with working on
Yeah.
the
I'll
thing.
add to what Gwen said. Sometimes these big centers will also have annual reviews. So they will have like year 4 review, for example, and they will, so there will be an external committee who will look at what the work, the quality of the work that is being done. And they will then make recommendations and suggestions on how to move forward. But Gwen is right. They want you to succeed. And it's also incumbent on the PI to communicate effectively with the program officers post-award, not just pre-award. So it actually makes a big difference. Thanks, Gwen, for that important viewpoint.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
So a couple other people come off camera. If anyone wanted to unmute themselves, you feel free to ask your question. And we always take follow-up questions via email at researchdevelopment@asu.edu, or Kaushik and Megan are always available as well. So feel free to reach out directly to those folks. And this session is recorded, so we'll email that out along with the slides so you can look at things more closely. There are no further questions. I'll wrap this one up. Thank you all for your time today. Kaushik, Megan, especially to you, thank you. We really appreciate you joining us in this PDW. Thank you again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.